Hey everybody, Sickly Worm here, never failing to bring you Destiny 2 content. And this one is specifically designed for my new Light players who are going to be joining us for the first time ever in Lightfall tomorrow. First of all, let me say I'm very excited to have y'all. You're going to love this game, I hope. And yeah, that's enough of that because we got a day ahead of us. Now, for my new Light players, there's going to be a lot of confusing stuff going on in Destiny 2. Also, apologize for my voice. I'm getting sick. If I sound odd, that's why. But there are a lot of weapons and weapon roles and just kind of inner workings to the weapon system in Destiny 2. And I kind of wanted to give a brief, and I know probably by the length of this video, it's not going to be so brief, but a brief description of all the different damage types, as well as archetypes, and some of our top tier perks. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Starting off with auto rifles here. Or I'm sorry. Let me back up just a little bit. Let me talk about the weapon system. So in Destiny 2, you're going to have three different weapon slots. Let's see here. Destiny 2 menu. Let's try that. There we go. All right. So let's go visit this. We can make it bigger here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So let's zoom in on this a little bit as well. But this is basically what you're going to see in your character screen. Now, specifically, of course, we're going to be talking about the weapons, which are these three right here. Okay. And to give you a long story short in regards to this, you have your kinetic / stasis / strand slot. You have your energy slot, which is your solar, void, and arc. And then you have your heavy slot. And heavy can be anything except kinetic. And that's the three different slots here. Obviously, you can fit a multitude of different weapons. There's more than just a couple of weapons in here. But some basics to go over. Starting off, before I forget, number one, this yellow weapon here is an exotic. Now, there are more than three. There's a couple different tiers of exotic weapons. You have basic, which is white, common, which is green, rare, which is blue, purple, which is legendary, and yellow, which is, of course, exotic. Now, in terms of when you start Lightfall, you will probably be gathering a bunch of basic weapons. And when it comes to the basic weapons, these weapons basically have one perk on them. Okay, if we go right here, they have their, what's called their, I apologize, let me grab a drink real quick. Their frame. Their frame basically determines certain aspects of the weapon that will always be on this frame. Okay, whites will only have a frame. They'll have no perks ensuing. But if we head over to common, which is the next level up, we will, of course, see that these weapons, just one moment, let it load here. These weapons have a couple of more slots right there that you can select from. So as we see when we go down here, we have their, their frame, which is, of course, their intrinsic. It's on every single frame like this. 720. You have sights this time around, okay, scopes rather, in this case, but most of the time it's just sights. And then, of course, a magazine perk, and that includes just one magazine perk. If we go to the blues up here, which is the rare, which is going to be probably one of the most common you're going to be collecting for a lot of your early game in Destiny 2, we can see that, come on, load for me here. We can see that there's an additional perk here. So we've got our sights, got our frame. We have got our magazine perk. See, basic magazine, it says down there. And then, of course, our basic traits. This one has moving targets. Now, once we go back and we go to legendary, legendary is where you're going to be living most of your Destiny 2 career once you reach a high enough level. So we're going to open up just the Braytech Werewolf here, and we're going to see it has a frame. Okay, it's a precision frame. It has a barrel perk, and notice, very importantly, you have a bunch of barrel perks to choose from right here. Okay, it has magazine perks, same thing, a bunch of different ones to choose from. You have your basic perks right here, and then you have your other your right column is what it's called, of basic perks right here. This weapon, when it drops, which this one won't drop particularly right now, it'll probably drop around Halloween, but each legendary weapon will drop with 2 randomly assigned perks from this column, 2 randomly assigned perks from this column, and 1 randomly assigned perk from each of these columns. Now, there is an exception to that, which we will talk about briefly, and that's through various, upgrades for the season which we're not going to talk about in this video. You could probably go watch any other YouTuber and they would explain that for you. And then, of course, we see down here, we have a origin trait. Now, this is not available on all legendary weapons, but origin traits give you a slight boost that will permanently be active on said weapon. And then, of course, let's go back. Let's go to the final tier, the exotic tier, which is right here. Now, very importantly, with exotic weapons, they will only ever have one role. Okay. For example, this auto rifles is basic intrinsic trait is rocket tracers, and exotics do a very unique and specific thing. They don't have a lot of general perks. They've got a barrel and a magazine perk like normal, but then they have a perk to complement, more often than not, their intrinsic perk. And then some will have a stock, some may have a different perk down here. But exotics, anytime you get an exotic, it will always be the exact same role for weapons, of course. We're not going to talk about armor today, but for weapons, it will always be this role no matter how you get this auto rifle. It will always be this role right here. Let's go ahead and go back. Now, I want to talk about the different tiers of weapons, because, of course, there are some different tiers of weapons that we can work with. Starting off, of course, we talked about it already briefly, the kinetic weapon. Come on. Oh, let me reload this page. I apologize. I thought I had my ducks in a row here, but apparently not. Let's go kinetic. Let's turn off these. Let's keep auto rifles on. And of course, all auto rifles are going to be either in the kinetic slot or the energy slot. Okay. Now, there are kinetic and energy. Kinetic and energy do not determine the ammo type that each weapon uses. There's also 3 different ammo types. Those are primary ammo, which is unlimited. You will have a magazine, of course, but once that magazine runs out, you can reload it an infinite amount of times. You have special weapons. Special weapons are more powerful than your primary weapons, but they do have a limited amount of ammo that you can pick up, anywhere from 12 all the way up to 25, depending on the weapon type that you actually have. Which once you get in game and start reading about them and getting some, you'll see what I'm talking about when I say anywhere from 12 to 25. Certain weapon archetypes have certain amounts of stuff like that. But then, of course, we're going to move on to our heavy, heavy power weapons. Power weapons, aka heavy weapons, are your big boys in terms of damage. They are much more powerful than the other 2 classes, but their ammo is substantially more limited, just like special ammo, except it's even more limited than special ammo. Power ammo is typically reserved for high health, really high health targets, or perhaps maybe something, similar to a large group of enemies. Power weapons are very strong, and their perks often complement them quite well, but of course their ammo is limited. Now, the 2 types of ammo that are going to drop, like we said, primary ammo will not drop because you'll have infinite primary ammo in your weapon. Energy ammo is going to look like little green bricks on the ground, and heavy or power ammo is going to look like purple bricks on the ground. So if you need special ammo or you need power ammo, you can run to one of those bricks that you see on the ground. Each of these has a random chance to be generated upon getting a kill. Okay, so don't expect power to be dropping every single kill. It's kind of random, but there are some perks you can put on to change that. But again, we're not going to cover those because those are armor today. And that's kind of it for that. Of course, last thing, kinetic. In the kinetic slot, we have 2, well, technically 3 at the time you're watching this video. We're going to have 3 weapons in this slot. We're going to have, of course, our kinetic weapons. Okay. And if we go down here, let's just click on the Braytech Werewolf again. We will see it says kinetic damage. It's going to show you this. It's going to appear white in game, and it's going to be dealing just standard kinetic damage. This is unelemental affinity weapon, an unelemental affinity weapon. The second thing, of course, that we have is energy weapons, which energy weapon. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me go back to kinetic for just a second. There is 2 more archetypes of weapons in the kinetic slot. That's going to be stasis, and that's going to be strand. And let's see if I can find a stasis or a strand weapon here. I don't see one. Oh, right here. It's stasis right now. So stasis weapon is, of course, going to deal stasis damage, which you'll understand more about once you get into Destiny 2. And then finally, you can't see it in here because Lightfall technically hasn't launched at the time I'm making this video, but there will be a third one known as Strand that will fit right in here as well, and it will deal, strand damage. So if there is, for example, a burn for kinetic damage, any weapon in here that has kinetic damage, it's going to deal bonus damage. If there is, a surging weapon, sorry, not burn, but a surging weekly modifier for stasis, your stasis weapons are going to deal more damage, and same thing for strand. But let's go ahead and get to our energy slot. Energy is going to consist of 3 different damage types, which of course are void, as we see here, void energy, solar energy, and arc energy. And these are the only 3 that you're going to find in the energy slots. And so we can look through there, same things, these are going to deal bonus damage to enemy shields that match this. So as you can see here, arc is blue. So if you see enemies with a light blue shield, you shoot them with the arc weapon, it's going to break that shield faster. And then of course we're going to go to power. Now power can actually have any of the various types. Hold on, don't know why. Try that again. There we go. Power weapons can have any of the damage or damage types other than kinetic. So as we see, we got void, solar, arc, and stasis right here. And yeah, that's basically just a quick run through of the different damage types. Now I want to talk about each weapon archetype, because there are several weapon archetypes, as we can see here. Auto rifles, combat bows, fusion rifles, the list goes on. And I want to cover what each of these does and each of these sub archetypes in this family. So we're going to, of course, start with auto rifle here. And auto rifles, are basically your standard assault rifles, okay? They have medium to high magazines. They deal a moderate to high amount of damage and have a decent sized magazine. There are, of course, a bunch of different auto rifles. However, there are 4 different archetypes, okay? And an archetype is basically determines what's like how fast and how hard a weapon's going to hit, as well as its intrinsic perks. So let's start with the sorry, like I said, I'm sick, guys. Let's start with the first one, which is going to be a 360 round per minute auto rifle. Okay, so I'm going to use false promises here. It shoots at, where's it at? 360 rounds per minute. It doesn't show right here for some reason, but it shoots at 360 rounds per minute, and its impact is very, very high. Okay, and the impact that's calculated in this game is based around a base, which is the damage you're going to find in PvP, and then it's going to carry over in PvE with multipliers. Okay, so when I talk about damage, if I say 37 damage, understand 37 damage is specifically going to be for the Crucible or the PvP aspect, but it's going to multiply up in PvE. So you might deal 37, I might say 37, but this weapon might deal, 600 or something damage in PvE activities, which is what we're going to be focusing on, is PvE activities in this video. But these, of course, have the intrinsic trait high impact frame. They are long range, slow firing, and have high damage. Now, this is a very important aspect of the high impact frame. It is more accurate when you are moving slowly. So if you are aiming down sights and you're quickly moving back and forth, it's going to be less accurate than if you aim down sights and you slowly walk and you kind of slowly strafe. And the accuracy bump is very, very noticeable with these. Now, these have relatively high recoil, but they are very, very manageable. But yeah, that is the high impact frame. Let's move on to the next one, which of course is the 450 precision frame. I'm going to use this one right here. So precision frame, this weapon's pattern, recoil pattern is more predictably vertical. This just has really good recoil. And again, stats aren't showing here, but its impact is slightly higher. I would say the damage is medium, about medium to high, kind of in that area, at a 450 round per minute rate of fire. These weapons are not as favored by the community because their DPS, aka their damage per second, is a little bit lower than other weapons, but what they lack in damage per second, they make up for in accuracy. You're going to be hitting those crits like cutting butter. It's going to be very, very easy to hit those crits. But yeah, that is the precision frame. Let me find a, let's see here. Here we go. Duty bound. This is a 600 round per minute frame. This is called an adaptive frame. So adaptives are well-rounded, reliable, and sturdy. These have a good fire rate, not a great fire rate, but they're good fire rate. They have good damage. They have manageable recoil. I would argue that this is one of the best archetypes of auto rifle in the current meta. And they also have relatively medium to high damage. As we can see, the impact is at 21, which means your headshots are going to be hitting I want to say it's about 27, about 27. Of course with those multipliers, but at a 600 round per minute fire rate, the damage output is relatively good. Not only that, but these weapons have high magazines. They make for a phenomenal, of course, well-rounded auto rifle. And then we get on to the last one, which is the 720's rapid fire frame. Now, rapid fire frames, deeper ammo reserves, and slightly faster reload when the magazine is empty. The base magazines on these are a lot higher than the other ones, and their rate of fire is 720 rounds per minute. These are very, very good auto rifles. They deal low to medium damage, very good for cutting through ads quickly. But yeah, they have a little bit more kick than all the other archetypes. Sometimes the kick is unbearable. Sometimes the kick is really, really manageable. Just kind of just depends on your stability stat right here. But yeah, that is it for the auto rifle archetypes. Now, there is technically one other archetype of auto rifle, which is this one, but we're not going to talk about exotics just yet. We'll kind of talk about exotics towards the end of the video and why they are unique. But that's it for the auto rifles. Let's move on to the combat bows and the different frames of combat bows. Before we get in here, let me get a drink real quick. Okay, so combat bows come in a couple different frames as well. Starting off with the highest fire rate, lowest damage, which is a lightweight frame. Okay, lightweight frames, they draw quickly and you move faster while they have it equipped. Okay, and this is our first lightweight frame. Lightweight frames actually make you physically run and walk slightly faster. As a new player, you probably won't notice it, but the more you play, the more you're going to start seeing, you know, that, oh, hey, I am moving slightly faster. I can sprint slightly faster with this. Of course, these have a base draw time of 580. They draw quickly, but they deal low damage. You can actually get some perks in here that will bring up the draw speed, which will in turn increase your fire rate. But yeah, that's a unique aspect of bows. You can actually increase the fire rates by managing draw time. But yeah, these are great. They deal kind of low to medium damage. They're great at closer range. At longer range, they're not quite as strong, just because it's a little bit more difficult to hit those shots. But let's move on to the next one, which is, let's see here. I believe Recruit Redemption is, there it is. Yes, precision frames. So precision frames are compound bows optimized for damage. Basically, their draw time is a little bit longer, but they deal more damage. And that's going to be common with the different archetypes of bows. Is you have a longer draw time, but they deal more damage. I would say combat bow is arguably the best, is the best type of bow frame you can get, because they hit hard enough to kill most red bars in 1 to maybe 2 shots, and their draw time isn't too crazy. But yeah, very, very good archetype of weapon. And I believe, let me check here. I want to make sure I'm not missing precision. I'm looking for a combat bow, or maybe I'm mistaken. Hold on. Yeah, I guess those are the only 2 frames of bows. I do apologize. Wait, let me see this. Yes, this is a combat bow. Okay, yeah. So those are the 2 archetypes of bows. Again, you have some different ones in here that are exotic, but again, we'll cover exotics a little bit later. Let's move on to fusion rifles. Now, fusion rifles are going to be the first thing we're going to cover that are oops, I apologize. This website's not wanting to work with me here. And I think it's because the game's currently offline, which is why I'm making this video. Let's put on this. Come on. Oh, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It is being... Okay, there we go. So there are a couple different fusion rifle frames. Now, fusion rifles are the first special weapon that we'll be talking about. So these are the ones that have a limited amount of ammo. And these are basically a charge rifle. You know, when you pull them out, they have to charge for a short little bit, and then they will shoot. For example, we're going to start with, of course, the high impact frame. This is the slowest charging at 960 milliseconds, so just a little bit less than 1 second charge time, but they deal a massive amount of damage, and they shoot, I believe it is 5 bolts out of this all at once, kind of like a shotgun that you have to charge up. These have substantially more range than the other archetypes of fusion rifles, and they hit very, very hard. But that's the high impact frame. Let's move on to the oopsies. Let's move on to the next one. We're gonna use Burden of Guilt as an example here. This is the adaptive frame. Again, well-rounded grip, reliable and sturdy. Very basic. It's just this is generally a good exotic to be using. What is this? Oh yeah, we can close out of that. This is just generally going to be, have moderate recoil, manageable recoil. It's going to have a nice, I believe it's 720 or 740 charge time. Again, I don't know why it's showing here, but 720, 740 round per minute charge time. A little bit longer than other stuff. But again, once you charge it, you can hit your shots very, very easily. And they deal, of course, a pretty substantial amount of damage. And let's move on to the last archetype, which is the rapid fire fusion rifle frame. Deeper ammo reserve, slightly faster reload when the magazine is empty. So same as the auto rifles we talked about earlier. These have a 500 millisecond charge time, so they charge in half a second. And of course, you can get various perks to increase that time, such as accelerated coils down here. But these hit for a very low amount of damage, and unlike the other two, they have a whopping 9 bolts that are fired with each shot. Okay, so you charge it up, and when it shoots, it's going to shoot 9 bolts. They got a little bit more recoil than the other ones, but they shoot substantially faster. So at close range, you can really, kind of cut down some enemies. But those are 3 archetypes of fusion rifles. Fusion rifles, again, very solid weapon archetype to use in any content. But from there, we're going to go on to glaives. Now, glaives are one of the newest archetype of weapons in the game currently. And hold on, it's there we go. Okay, and there are just 2 different archetypes of glaives. The first one is going to be Judgment of Kel'Garoth. Now, this is the only one in this archetype, which is the aggressive glaive. Hard-hitting, slow melee, and range polearm with a frontal shield. The frontal shield applies to all glaives, but this one just basically does a little bit more damage than all the other ones. The fun thing about glaives, they are a first-person melee-based weapon. Now, they have 2 attacks. They have, they have 2 attacks. They have their melee attack, which you can use indefinitely. You can spam that melee attack and it will hit as many times as you want. It will consume no ammo whatsoever. And then you have a projectile attack. Now, the projectile attack will actually consume ammo. However, landing a projectile attack will charge a shield that will block 97.5% of damage in all PvE content directly from in front of you. So you pull out a glaive, you hit 3 shots, you're at about 75% charge. You can hold your associated button with activating that shield and take 97% less damage from directly in front of you. And last I checked, it also applies if you're like standing in some type of area of effect. It will also block that. But I don't want to get y'all too excited because that may have changed. But yeah, that's the first archetype of glaive. And then the second one, load here, is an adaptive glaive. Of course, hybrid glaive, melee / range polearm with frontal shield. Same thing, it just deals slightly less damage. Shoots a little bit faster, handles just a little bit faster, but they're very similar. But those are the 2 archetypes of glaives. Now, glaives are a very fun weapon type, and you can build into them heavily. They're affected by melee-based perks, such as that come from such a certain exotic pieces of armor and stuff like that. I would definitely say pick you up a glaive and use it in low-level content. See if you like it. If you can master it, you really can bring a melee-based weapon into high-level content. Which I know low-level, high-level content doesn't make much sense to y'all right now, but once the DLC drops, it will, and you start playing, it'll make more sense. But yeah, those are the 2 types of glaives. Glaives are a lot of fun. I very much enjoy using glaives. But let's move on to grenade launchers. Now, grenade launchers are a very unique weapon archetype. Okay, and I say they're unique because they actually have a heavy weapon slot and a special ammo slot. Come on. There we go. Now, the special weapons are all going to be breech-loaded grenade launchers. For example, Ignition Code. This is one of my favorite grenade launchers. Basically, it shoots 1 grenade, and then you have to break open the do a break action on the tube, reload another shot, and reload it, keep going. But they do take special ammo, and that's a big plus for these weapon archetypes. There are, I believe, 2 or 3 different types of grenade launchers. They all feel very similar. Of course, this one is lightweight frame, so you'll move slightly faster when using it. Let me see if I can find, let's see, the mountaintop, there is technically an additional high velocity grenade launcher, but this has been sunset. We're not going to talk about it because it's not truly relevant. Wave frames. Here we go. Wave frames. Now, wave frames are interesting because they do not shoot a grenade that explodes. Instead, they shoot a grenade that when it hits the ground, it shoots out a wave of energy in front of them, an elemental wave of energy in front of them. This is very, very, very good because it can hit a lot more enemies. But yeah, it's a very good grenade launcher. One-shot handheld grenade launcher projectiles release waves of energy that, when they contact the ground. The biggest downside of these is it has to be on the ground. So if you have an enemy that's above you, these are not going to work against them. But yeah, that's the wave frame. Let me just make sure there's no other archetypes of special grenade launcher. Oh, okay, there is one additional one. This is a very unique one. This is the only grenade launcher of its archetype, but this is a double fire grenade launcher. It fires a hard-hitting twin fire round, and basically it shoots just 2 grenades out of the tube that go in a similar path but kind of split out the further that they go. This is the only one of its archetype, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Maybe they add another one with the actual launch of Lightfall, but we'll see. Let's see here. Let's go. Let me find. Okay, let's move on to the heavy grenade launcher. Now, I'm not going to cover all the archetypes of the heavy grenade launchers because they're just different fire rates with different amounts of damage. But basically, this is a heavy grenade launcher. Right here, as you see, it has a larger magazine. This one has 5. They can have up to 8 rounds in the magazine with various perks and stuff. But they hit hard and they're in the heavy slot. And they're getting a buff next season. So keep your eyes peeled for heavy grenade launchers. Any heavy grenade launcher is better than not having one because they're definitely gonna be dealing more damage next season. They're predicted to be pretty darn good. But that's it for grenade launchers. I'm gonna move into hand cannons now. Now, hand cannons are a lot of Destiny players' most favorite and beloved archetype of weapon. Oh my lord, it's just not wanting to work, is it? Let's do this. Let's take off grenade launchers, apply that. Oh, I don't know why it's being so difficult here. I do apologize. I think it's because Destiny's, Destiny's API basically is down right now, so it can't retrieve a lot of the weapon perks and stuff like that. I'm not gonna crop this out because I want you to understand my pain. Just kidding. But hand cannons are basically, I would say they're probably everybody's favorite archetype of weapon, and they are very, very good and they're solid weapons. Hand cannons are basically cowboy style weapons, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm just gonna do this. We're gonna go. Let's reload this whole page. Go to weapons. All right, and let's go hand cannons. They are essentially kind of like a cowboy style of weapon. There are 3 different types of hand cannons in the game currently. There are 120s, which let me find. I believe this is a 120. Let's double check here. Yes, 120 round per minute hand cannons. These shoot 120 rounds per minute. They hit hard. They're an aggressive frame, high damage, high recoil weapon. They also, it doesn't mention here, but they have very, very low reloading. But what they lack in that they make up for in damage. Pretty good option. These are kind of like a high damage archetype of weapon. They're going to be killing most standard enemies in 1 shot. Sometimes maybe they take 2 shots. But yeah, that is the aggressive frame 120 round per minute hand cannon. Let's move on to the 140s. Now this is of course the adaptive, well-rounded grip, reliable and sturdy. This is probably everybody's favorite archetype weapon. Fires at 140 rounds per minute, deals a moderate amount of damage. Moderate is relative here. It can still one-shot most simple red bars in the game. And of course you can get a host of various perks that just improve the weapon even further, which we're going to talk about some of the best perks towards the end of the video. But yeah, that is adaptive frame hand cannons. Definitely keep your eye out for some of those. And when we go over the rolls, some of the rolls we're going to talk about are going to be very good on these hand cannons. And then finally, let me find one here. Finally, there is one more archetype of weapon. hand cannon, sorry, and that is the, come on, that's the 180 precision frame hand cannons. Okay, they shoot 180 rounds per minute and deal low to medium damage. I would say. Now, these, of course, since they're precision frame, they have a very, very manageable recoil. Like, you can really spam these and easily hit your crits, but they do deal less damage than their counter type, or their counter archetype. So, you know, if using one of these, you can go in and you can probably kill most in on level activities. You can kill most red bar health enemies. But as you get to harder enemies, such as tier 2 red bars, you know, it's going to be difficult to kill them in 1, 2, or even 3 shots. Like, it's going to take a couple shots. Overall, though, these feel fantastic because what they lack in damage, they make up for in fire rates and precision, and the ability to hit precision shots just constantly. But yeah, that is that's the last archetype of hand cannon there. And again, we do have some that are outside that, but they're exotic, so we're not going to cover them. But let's go ahead and move on to linear fusion rifles. Now, linear fusion rifles are really, really fun weapons. Definitely lots of fun. Now, there are most linear fusions, with the exception of a couple of exotics, are in the heavy slots because they fire they're like they're a fusion rifle basically. They charge 1 high damage beam over X amount of time. So let's go check out just Cataclysmic here. As you see here, charge time is 533. Again, we're not going to cover the frames because I believe they're all the same frame, with the exception of one, which we'll cover that one. But the charge time is reasonable, and they deal a massive amount of damage. Now, one thing about these is by the time you're able to use them as a new light player, they're going to have been nerfed from their current position. So if you're watching a video that says, oh, you know, linear fusions are the way to go, that is no longer going to be as accurate because they are receiving a 20%, I believe it's a 20% damage nerf inside of PvE. So they're still going to be decent, but they're not going to be a premier choice to use. Let me grab a drink real quick. All right, I do apologize for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and check out the other we're going to check out two. We're going to check out the 2 more linear fusions rifles. There it is, Storm Chaser. So this one is an aggressive frame, and this one actually fires in 3-round burst. So basically, when you charge up this fusion rifle, instead of shooting that 1 high damage beam, it's going to break it up into 3 beams and go, you know, and so it's a little bit more difficult to hit all of them as crits, but these do deal, if you hit all 3 crits, they do deal more damage than their standard counterpart. And I believe it's like 30% more damage, which is very, very good. But again, linear fusion rifles are getting a nerf next season. Now, 2 weapons I did want to cover in here are Arbalest and Lawrence Driver. These are actually special weapons, and we're not going to go over them. You know, we're not doing a full exotic review, but these are special weapons. So if you want a special weapon, this is in the kinetic slot, and this one's in the energy slot. But if you want a special weapon, linear fusion rifle, one of these are the way to go. But let's go ahead and move on to machine guns. Machine guns are very, very fun. So of course we're gonna skip over the exotics here. There are I believe 3 different types of machine guns. There are 360 round per minutes. For example, Bane of Sorrow here, which you cannot obtain Bane of Sorrow in the game anymore. But they fire at 360 rounds per minute, so similar to a high impact auto rifle frame, and they hit very, very hard. So, you know, slower fire rate, but they got great ad clearing potential. And they have moderate boss damage potential. Machine guns really should not be used on bosses very much because they struggle a little bit in comparison to other weapons. But moving on to the next archetype of machine gun, of course, we have Adaptive Frame, a well-rounded grip, reliable and sturdy, 450 rounds per minute. This is, I would say, the optimal archetype of machine gun. They deal decent boss damage. They're great for ad clearing, and their recoil is very manageable. So you can easily, cut through ads and cut into bosses with these weapons. So if you get a 450 machine gun, keep it in mind. Again, we don't know what new weapons they're going to have next season, so just keep this in mind. But that is that archetype. Let's go on to the final archetype, which is, let me see, where's one? Here we go, Plank Stride. Plank Stride no longer obtainable in game. So just keep that in mind. But these fire at a massive 900 rounds per minute. So they fire twice as fast as the last archetype, and they have big magazines. They deal moderate damage, and it's very difficult to maintain crits. But if you need something to cut through a group of low tier enemies, this is go-to. You know, these are phenomenal at cutting through, you know, groups of ads, and even sustained damage against high health target. These are pretty good. But yeah, that's the rapid fire frame machine gun. I'm sorry, I feel sneeze coming on, so if I have to stop and sneeze, that's why. But let's move on to pulse rifles. This is one of everybody's favorite weapon types. Oh dear, did it again. Hold on. Let me do this real quick. Pulse rifles are one of everybody's favorite weapon archetypes. Now, pulse rifles are your standard issue burst rifles. And they are really, really good. They've been good for the past few metas. No nerfs are coming to them as of this, current update. So they're still going to be in a great position. But let's talk about the different types. Starting off, of course, with our high damage, low rate of fire archetype, which is, of course, the high impact frame, fire slow, hit hard, and they are more stationary when, or more accurate when stationary or moving slowly and aim down sights. They fire at 340 rounds per minute. This is a nice, slow, well-rounded fire rate. It's very easy to hit all your headshots, and you can pace your shots nice and slow. Very effective, and also very effective at long range. These are very effective weapons. But that is the first archetype. Let's move on to the next one, which is the 390 round per minute adaptive frame. So I believe, no, this isn't the first adaptive. Well-rounded grip, reliable and sturdy. These fire at 390 rounds per minute. Now, these weapons are often looked down upon in Destiny because they have a slower rate of fire and they don't deal a lot of damage. However, what they lack in the fire rate and the damage department, they make up for in accuracy. You can you can easily hit your crits. So if you've got quick moving targets, stuff like that, you can use this on them to great effect. And many of these have some pretty awesome perks. I mean, Smite of Moraine here has amazing perks. This is a raid weapon. It will be available in Lightfall, so just keep that in mind. But they have some great perks. Demolition is Firefly, for example, which we'll talk about those a little bit later. But these are just kind of a well-rounded, right there, like it says, well-rounded. If you bring one in, it's not the best option, not the worst option. It's going to serve you very well. But let's move on to the next two. And I say two because both of these fire at 450 rounds per minute. But they do a little bit of different stuff. So we're going to start with the first one, which is the aggressive frame. And this is one of my favorite pulse rifle archetypes in the game. It is absolutely amazing. With the aggressive burst, it fires a hard-hitting 4-round burst. So all the other pulse rifles, legendary pulse rifles, fire in the 3-round bursts, but the aggressive frames fire in 4, and they are very, very good. Now, of course, what they, with that hard-hitting 4-round burst, what they're lacking in is, if you miss one of those bullets, and then you're firing 4 bullets, so it's more difficult, you're dropping your damage off. These are really good, in my opinion, for kind of doing some ad clear. Attacking high health targets that have a nice large crit spot is also a strong point of these. But I think this is probably most people's favorite archetype of pulse rifle. And you can actually get one currently in game, and when I say currently in game, I mean post launch of where is it? Post launch of Lightfall. And I do want to find it here because this is one that I feel like definitely needs a PSA. Insidious. Now, this comes from a raid, so you'll need to be a little higher level, have some more experience in the game. But a raid is basically a 6-man activity that you can do for awesome rewards, good time investment. But this right here is, I would say, probably the greatest archetype of, or aggressive burst archetype pulse rifle in the game. It's got great perks. Of course, you can craft it, make them enhanced, stuff like that. But there will be one available because currently I don't know how many are going to be available. The one we just looked at, Disparity, is not present. It will not be present in the game anymore, but Insidious still will be present. So just keep that in mind. That's a good one that you really want to, if you can, once you get to the level 2 raid, you want to grab that. Let's move on to rocket launchers. Of course, rocket launchers are very, very strong power weapons, and there are no rocket launchers outside of the power ammo slot because they are very strong. Now, I'm sorry. Let me grab a drink. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This sickness is kicking my butt right now, but y'all need content, and I'm here to provide. There are different archetypes of rocket launcher. I'm going to point out two, the two that matter. Okay, the first one is going to be this one, and this is probably everybody's more preferred. This is a Hake precision frame. It fires a small auto tracking missile. So this one, every single precision frame rocket launcher you get, so when you aim it at the enemy, you're going to hear like a beep, 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 beep. Once it hits that, that beep, 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 you will be able to fire a rocket that will track the enemy. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to hit the enemy. The enemy can step out of the way and dodge it. But if you have a fast firing rocket, don't worry. In fact, this one was actually a curated role. You should be able to buy this in Lightfall. This is a great role here. But that's that one. The other one is the adaptive frame, and I think there's another one that's like an aggressive frame. Basically just depends on the difference in the blast damage. But this one does not come with tracking. It just fires a rocket that's going to go straight where you shoot it. The difference between these and the precision frame is these hit a lot harder, and they are definitely better for overall DPS. Now, you can get a tracking module as one of the perks on them, which we'll talk about tracking module in a little bit, to make them track, but these don't come with tracking at their base. But that's the archetypes of rocket launchers. Again, rocket launchers always have been very, very solid weapon archetypes. But let's move on to scout rifles. Now, scout rifles are, of course, a primary ammo weapon, and they have a couple of different roles here. So we're going to start with the 150 round per minute, which are basically the hardest hitting, slowest fire rate. They fire 150 rounds per minute, but they hit very, very hard. Of course, high impact frame. They are long range, slow firing, high damage. These, you can't go wrong with one. They hit from some amazing damage. The trade-off with scout rifles, they don't deal as much DPS, so to speak, because you can sit way, way back with them. I say way back, but you can sit a very, very far distance with them and still deal max damage. But again, the high impact frame, if you're moving slowly or you're not moving at all, it's going to be more accurate. They also have probably, I would say, the most amount of recoil within their archetype. But let's go ahead and move on from the 150 to the 180. This is probably one of the most forgotten about archetypes of weapons. But we're going to look at the Hung Jury, which should still be, if I'm not mistaken, it should still be available next season. These are 180 round per minute scout rifles. They, of course, their frame is a precision frame, more vertically predictive recoil. These are fantastic in PvE. They are very, very good. Their fire rate is good. Their ability to hit crits is phenomenal. And they are just very good. Again, you can also sit not way back, but you can sit kind of far back and just pick off enemies' health with these. Very good archetype of weapon. Now, let me move on to one of the more uncommon ones. Let me see if I can find it in here. That would be the 200 round per minute scout rifles. And the 200 round per minute scout rifles are basically a lightweight frame. Lightweight frames. This I do not believe is obtainable in game currently, but of course you move faster while you have them in your hand. And they fire at 200 rounds per minute. Again, they don't hit quite as hard as the 180s, but what they lack in damage, they make up for in their fire rate and damage combo, because these can deal a pretty good amount of a pretty good DPS. But that's that one. Oh, I apologize. There's one more archetype I forgot right at the very start. These are the 120 rounds per minute. We're gonna go back just a little bit. 120 round per minute archetypes, just like the hand cannon, shoot 120 rounds per minute, and they hit very, very hard. These are going to kill most red bar ads in one shot, unless they're a tier 2. But they deal with tier 2s in probably 2 to 3 bullets. This is currently the only 120 legendary in the game. It's called the Long Arm, and it will be available next season through a certain dungeon. But this is, I can't really complain about it. It's a solid weapon. Yeah, they're pretty solid. But let's go on to the final and my personal favorites archetype of what's it called? I apologize, I forgot the name of it. Scout rifle. And that, of course, is the 260 round per minute. Now, this is a rapid fire frame. It fires in full auto with deeper ammo reserves. Faster reload when the weapon is empty. So the faster reload is not like insanely fast, but it's a little bit faster. But the important thing about this, these fire in full auto, okay? And they feel almost like a long range auto rifle. They're good. They are very good, especially this particular weapon. I take this weapon into like in-game content. And this weapon will be available next season through a raid called the Deepstone Crypt, so keep that in mind. I'm trying to remember to call out whether the certain weapons we're looking at are going to be available. But that's the 260s. They shoot very fast. They're like an auto rifle. They're like an assault rifle that shoots a lot slower and hits a little bit harder. But yeah, that's it for scout rifles. We're going to move on to shotguns now. Now, shotguns, of course, are a special weapon, primarily special weapons, and there's some different archetypes of them. I'm going to go through here. The first one, and the most unique, is the precision slug shotgun, okay? And the precision, or pinpoint slug frame, I guess is what it's called, but it fires a slug round. So it's not that buckshot that you would see with most shotguns. It fires one slug, has more range than other shotguns, and it hits very, very hard. This of course, can one-shot kill any red bar in the game. And it can oftentimes one-shot orange bars as well, which the tiers of enemy I'm talking about, there's red bar, orange bar, yellow bar. I should have mentioned that at the start of the video, and I do apologize. But yeah, it can put out some serious damage. But of course, if you do not hit the crits, which is the damage, basically the damage increasing zone on enemies, such as headshots, for most enemies, you will not get, you're not going to deal much damage, because their crit multiplier is very, very very high. Now then, I'm going to move on to the slowest firing archetype of shotgun, which of course is the aggressive frame. These are hard hitting, high recoil. They increase their rate of fire after a kill. It doesn't increase it by much. These are great in the PvP aspect of the game. Probably not as good as they once were. I think one thing it fails to mention here is they have a more predictable, like, circular pattern. And they, like I said, they do hit very, very hard. But yeah, that's kind of it for those. They fire slow but hit hard. Again, most orange bars you could probably take out at close range with one of these. But let's move on to, I gotta remember my shotgun archetypes here. Let's see here. Okay, we'll just go with, I think, Dustrock Blues. It's, yes, okay, so this gun you can no longer obtain in-game, so just keep that in mind. But Dustrock Blues is a precision frame. And again, this all it does is increase its, its vertical recoil. But this one actually has an, if I'm not mistaken, it has an oval-shaped pellet spread, okay? One of the things that Bungie has recently changed is, of course, the pellet spreads on shotguns, because they used to be random. Now they're all pretty finite. So the aggressive one was circular, it had a bunch on the outside, one on the inside. This one is more vertical. These are arguably the best. I'm sorry, the sickness is getting to me, guys, but we can do it. These are arguably the best ones in PvP content, because they're oval-shaped, slug pattern is the perfect shape to kill a guardian. But yeah, these, they have that, they have that predictable recoil. These are probably one of the weaker ones in PvE, but one of the best ones in PvP content. But that's that one. Let me find our, where is it? I just saw it. Our next one. Here we go. Our lightweight frames. Lightweight frames, similar to all the other lightweight frames we've talked about, it increases your movement speed when you have it equipped. That means when you have it in your hand, not just have it like on your character. But when you have it in your hand, you'll move faster with it. These have actually a diamond shaped, so they're a lot more difficult to get kills in PvP. But again, like if you're getting close enough in PvE, these patterns aren't really going to matter. The big thing is they allow you to move faster. They fire 80 rounds per minute. I'm sorry, I don't think I told you all the rounds per minute. The precision frames fire at 65 rounds per minute. But yeah, that's that one. And then of course we get to one of my personal favorites, which is, here we go, threat level. Now the shotgun no longer present in game. Okay, but these are rapid fire. They fire in full auto, and they have a high rate of fire, 140 rounds per minute, deeper ammo reserve. So with this archetype of shotgun, you can shoot at basically you can shoot very, very fast. You can dump ammo very, very quickly. Of course, the damage is a lot lower than other shotguns, so don't expect to kill in one shot outside of, your base red bar enemies. But they're very fun, and these are actually some of the best for DPS. But yeah, that is all the archetypes of shotguns. All of them, of course, are special weapons. Each one has a very unique role. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Moving on to sidearms. All right. So, sidearms are very, very fun. There's a couple different archetypes of sidearms. Let me start with the slowest firing archetype, which is the let me see here, the precision frame. Yeah, precision frames fire at 260 rounds per minute, so these are very slow, but they hit very hard and they have a very predictable recoil pattern. These, again, it's the thing with sidearms. Most sidearms are going to fill a similar role. This is just that. Really nothing special about this outside of its ability to hit crits very, very easily. But even a lot of these have difficult to manage recoil. But yeah, that's the 260. Let's move up to my personal favorites, which is the 300 round per minute. The adaptive frame, of course, right here, which I'm not going to read out what these mean anymore. Like adaptive frame, it's going to be the same on every gun. These are phenomenal. Okay, these are very good. They have a decent rate of fire. They deal decent damage. They're very, very good weapons. I don't have anything to really complain about. Of course, you can get some great perks on some of these rolls. But yeah, their range is pretty okay. Their recoil pattern's pretty okay. But yeah, let's see here. Let me move on to, okay, here we go. This is our unique one, our aggressive burst. Now the aggressive is for this one is a hard hitting 2-round burst. So it fires 2 bullets at a time. So these hit very hard. Fires 325 rounds per minute. They hit hard. They deal some spanking damage. Depending on your role, you can have some really good weapons in this archetype. This one right here, Empirical Evidence, is a very good one. If you buy Witch Queen, you'll be able to get it with Witch Queen. But yeah, that's the aggressive. And let's of course go to the last two here. So Farewell, this one is not available to get in game, but this is a lightweight frame, so you move faster with it. Fires at 360 rounds per minute. These have a little bit more recoil to them, but they're very spammable, and it's very fun to spam these, just hitting that trigger. These are a lot of fun to use. If you get one, check its rolls, which we're going to go over some decent rolls at the end of the video. I think mine currently has full auto and adrenaline junkie, which I know full auto we'll talk about later. But it's a good roll. These are not the best, but they're serviceable. And then finally, oh wait, no, there's another archetype. Hold on, let me find it here. What is it? Oh goodness, I can't remember the name of them. I do apologize. I don't see any here. Let me find. No, that's one, but I'm looking for the other one. Oh, here it is. Okay. Now this is the adaptive frame. The adaptive frame is unique because it fires at 491 rounds per minute, but it fires in a 3-round burst. So like the other one that we talked about has a 2-round burst. This one has 3 rounds. So much faster than that, of course. Very, very good. These are more often not super stable weapons that will handle very, very well for you. In terms of PvE, not the best option. I think that a 300 round per minute is probably better. But yeah, that's the 3-round burst ones. And then of course our last one here, I just seen, where was it? There we go. Okay, is our Suros. Now, Suros has a rapid fire, so these fire in full auto, have deeper ammo reserves, so they're gonna have higher magazines, deal less damage, but they're gonna fire at 450 rounds per minute, fully automatic. These are very fun, but feasibility not quite as good as others. Their recoil is often really high, so you start shooting and next thing you know you're looking at the ceiling if you don't manage that recoil. I would say it's more of a PvP style weapon to use, not so much PvE, but yeah, that's the last one of those. And yeah, of course we do have some exotics that fit different builds, but we're not going to cover exotics right now. Let's move on to sniper rifles. So sniper rifles, of course, will always fit in the special ammo category. And there are a couple different variants. I'm going to cover Kind of the most important ones. Let's start with Silicon Aroma here. This weapon, if I'm not mistaken, should be available next season from Nightfalls, but they are aggressive frames, high damage, high recoil, and they have a tiny magazine of only 3, but they hit very, very hard. That's all I can say about it. It's a sniper, great for long distance attacks and stuff. Let's move on to the next one, which is, let's see, I believe Shepherd's Watch is so this is a 90 round per minute archetype, adaptive frame. Again, these are just solid all-arounders. Don't deal as much damage as the aggressives, but they're serviceable. And then finally, the last one to keep in mind. Let me find one here. Here we go. Praetor's Revenge. This sniper rifle will be available next season through the Vault of Glass raid. But these fire 140 rounds per minute, very spammable, rapid fire frames. So boom, 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 boom. These can be very good for like DPS, especially if you have certain perks on them. For example, with Praetor's Revenge here, rewind rounds. But yeah, that's all I can really say about rapid fire frame snipers. And that's it for the snipers. Mind you, Darcy and Whisper the Worm are both heavy weapons. I think I should probably have said all that stuff, but we're going to move on to my favorite archetype of weapon in the entire game, which is submachine guns. And oh, I love submachine guns. So submachine guns, they have a couple different archetypes as well. We're going to start with the lowest tier 1 move, or not the lowest tier, but the lowest fire rate, the highest fire rate. This is a precision frame. Rounds per minute, 600 rounds per minute. They deal the most damage of any SMG. I mean, they're good. I would say these are arguably better in PvP content than PvE. And we'll talk about why in just a second. But these are close range, high fire rate weapons with, medium to large. I'd say like medium-sized magazines. Some of them have smaller magazines. But really, the perks are what you should be on the lookout for, because you can get some crazy rolls. And SMGs really, I would say, are probably one of the more dominant weapon archetypes in the game currently. But let's move on to our next archetype, which is the aggressive frame, high damage, high recoil. These fire at 750 rounds per minute, which it doesn't say there, but take my word for it, it does. 750 rounds per minute, and they hit very hard. Their recoil is a little bit less manageable. And this is something you definitely probably end up noticing if you used one of these, is it's going to have a lot more recoil. You want to be a little bit closer to your enemies if you're going to use one of these, but they're very good. And then let's move to the last two. Now, there are two different ones here. Let me find. Let's see here. Come on. There we go. We'll start with escape velocity. So, both of these archetypes of weapons are going to be 900 round per minute weapons, but one of them is a lightweight frame, so you move faster with it. The other one is an adaptive. We'll talk about it in a second. Both of them are very good. Lightweights deal slightly less damage, like ever so slightly, like the most minuscule amount less damage than your adaptives. But this is what a lightweight looks like. And then of course an adaptive. Let me find what's an adaptive I can think of right off the top of my head here. Here we go. Trackless waste. Now this, you can't obtain this in game currently. But this is one that's also, it's 900 round per minute, but it's got the adaptive frame on it, so it's got, the well-rounded, reliable, sturdy weapons that deal slightly more damage. And when I say slight, it's almost not even noticeable. But yeah, that's it for SMGs. They are, yeah, that's it for SMGs. Sorry. SMGs are phenomenal weapons. Very, very good. If you get an SMG, be on the lookout for some of the roles we're going to talk about towards the end of the video. They are good weapons. Moving on, though, we're going to talk about swords. Swords are a very unique... Did it again. Let's just go. I know I could probably click on the top and figure out the same thing. Actually, I probably start doing that. Swords. Yeah, swords here. So, swords come in a multitude of different frames. I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm going to cover the ones that kind of stand out a little bit. But most of them are very, very similar. Starting off with the Crown Splitter. Crown Splitter is the aggressive frame. I believe it's the only aggressive frame sword in the game, and it's only usable by Titans, okay? Which is one of the classes that you will choose as a new light player if you choose to choose Titan. With swords have two types of attacks. Swords have a light attack, which is where you just swing the sword. Does less damage, and swords have a heavy attack. Now, the different frames of swords determine their different attacks. Like we saw there, it's a heavy hitting, slam that sword in the ground, deal big damage to it. But if we take Eternity's Edge, for example, now this is a warlock only sword, but this one is a vortex frame. And vortex frames, basically, when you hit your heavy attack, it spins in a circle like 6 or 7 times. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I do apologize for that. Like I said, I'm getting sick and I had a massive sneeze. I hope I don't have like spit and stuff in my beard, but yeah, vortex frames, they spin just around really fast. So you turn yourself basically into a little tornado for a second. These are very fun and these can have pretty decent damage. But yeah, that is the vortex frame. Let me find. Okay, let's just use Big Quest as an example. There's of course the adaptive frame. This is a pretty standard sword. It's got your light attack, and then when you activate your heavy attack, it just does a single uppercut. Pretty simple, still very good. Oh, I should also mention that each of these different heavy attacks consumes a certain amount of sword ammo, and I think actually adaptive frames have the least amount of ammo consumed on heavy attack. It only consumes 2 ammo on a heavy attack. And then let me see. I know there's, where is it? Here we go. Finally, we have the caster frame. Now, the caster frame is actually a ranged sword. So when you hit your heavy button, it will throw out this, heavy attacks, and it goes like a little firestorm. This one would be a firestorm, but depending on your the damage type up here, it's going to deal different types of damage. It's going to fling at enemies, and once it hits an enemy, it's going to stay there and kind of, deal damage to him for just a little bit. And yeah, that is the 3 archetypes of, or that's not the 3, but that's the multiple different archetypes of swords. They're all unique in their own special way. But yeah, let's move on to the final archetype weapon, which is, of course, trace rifles. Trace rifles, legendary trace rifles are relatively new. Most of these are, I apologize, exotics, but there are 3 energy versions of these. These fire at 1,000 rounds per minute, and they fire literally a laser beam. And they only have 1 archetype with each of these, so we're not going to cover the archetypes, but it just fires a laser beam of constant damage. Now, these, interestingly enough, are special weapons. Okay, these are special weapons. So, if you want to use one of these, keep that in mind. But yeah, that's basically all the archetypes of weapons. Now I want to cover some really solid perks here. These perks are, of course, the old perks that we've had. We could be getting some new ones, so if I don't cover new ones, understand I made this video before Lightfall. There might be some awesome new perks, but we're just going to go down this list here because this list kind of talks about some of the really strong perks. But yeah, starting off, when I bring up, actually, hold on. When I bring up good rolls on a weapon, the primary, god rolls that most players want to go for are perks that synergize well with one another. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But when you pair perks with other perks, because like I said, on legendary weapons, you're gonna get 2 basic traits. They should complement each other. And one of the best complements is a reload increasing, for PvE, mind you, is a reload increasing perk paired with a damage dealing perk. Okay, so that's very important to remember that. But we're going to start on the list here and go down the list. This is mostly just kind of some damage dealing perks, and then we'll go into reloading perks. Talk about some of my favorite reloading perks. But starting off, we have a solar energy perk here, which is incandescent. Basically, when you get a kill, whether it's a precision or a non-precision kill, it will apply Scorch to nearby enemies. Killing powerful enemies and players increases the range to 8 meters. Okay, so this one basically, as you get kills, it's going to set everything around it on fire. And they're going to burn for a little bit. And this perk synergizes very well with solar subclasses. We're not going to get into detail on solar. It'll make more sense once you start playing. But yeah, that's incandescent. This is definitely, I would say, is like an S tier perk. Very, very good. Very good perk. Next one, Volt Shot. Okay, Volt Shot is it jolts targets. Jolt is a arc related verb. Basically, reloading after a kill applies jolt on the next hit. When an enemy is jolted, once they reach a certain damage threshold, it will shock. It will chain lightning to other enemies around it. Very, very strong perk. Killing Tally, also very good. Now, this is only available on a few weapons, but at 1 stack of Killing Tally, you get 10% more damage, 2 stacks you get 20, and 3 stacks you get 30. Basically, this will keep that damage boost until you either put the weapon away or until you reload it. So this pairs well with another perk that I'm thinking of on the top of my head. Bait and Switch, I'm not going to talk about this because this is a raid perk. And I don't think that many of our new light friends are going to be doing raids on the first day. Bait and Switch is a great perk though. Focus Fury here. Focus Fury increases damage by 20% once you hit 50% of the magazine as a precision hit. And it's a nice long duration. I mean, I can't complain about it. It's good, especially if you can land your crits and you can get at least half the magazine. You're gonna get just a flat 10-second or 11-second boost to damage, 20% more damage. So you can lay into a boss and deal additional damage to a boss. Or you can kill ads, whatever you want. I'm gonna skip that one. Golden Tricorn. This is a pretty decent perk. Basically, the way it works. It activates on a weapon kill. So once you get a kill, it will activate for 7 seconds. Then when you get another kill with either the grenade or a melee of the same damage type. So like, let's say you're using arc. You have Golden Tricorn on your submachine gun and it's arc damage. If you get an arc melee or an arc grenade kill while that 7-second timer is active, it will increase the damage to 50%, which is a massive boost. Very, very good. And you can technically kind of infinitely chain it here because as long as you can get kills with weapons, it's doing 10% more damage. And more damage is always great. One for All, arguably one of the best perks in the game. Increase the damage by 35% for 10 seconds. All you have to do is damage 3 different targets within a certain amount of time. Very easy to do in most activities. And something super, super important to remember about this is One for All can activate with Incandescent. Now, I don't believe there's any weapons in the game currently that can roll with One for All and Incandescent, but any, for example, if you get a kill on a weak enemy and it explodes and sets 2 other enemies on fire, this would activate and you get 10 seconds of 35% more damage. Very, very good. Moving on to Multi-Kill Clip. Multi-Kill Clip is a very good perk. Basically, reloading after kills will grant a stacking bonus to damage. Okay, so for example, if I've got a submachine gun or an auto rifle and I kill 3 enemies before reloading, once I reload, it will activate the 3rd stack, so it'll do 50% more damage for 5 seconds. Very good perk. Very good perk. Now it automatically refreshes on a reload. So the important thing to know is, like, if I kill 3 enemies, I need to, not immediately reload unless I run out of ammo, because if I kill 3 enemies and then, have that 50% more damage and use that to kill 1 enemy and then immediately reload after that, I'm dropping my stacks only 17% more damage. So yeah. Kill clip 33%. This is actually out of date. It's now 25% more damage. After reloading after you get a kill will activate it for 3.8 seconds, and it can chain together. So it's 25% damage, but you can continuously change it together. Adrenaline Junkie, this is a great perk. Gain 1 stack for each weapon kill, or you can gain all 5 stacks with a grenade kill. This is strong because, at 1 stack, if you get a couple kills, within a magazine, you get, 3 kills and reload. Or not even, you don't have to reload. 3 kills, you're at times 3 stacks. You're doing 20% more damage. But if you have a grenade in your back pocket and you throw a grenade and you get 1 kill with that grenade, you're instantly going to jump to 5 stacks. And the very, very important thing about this can be refreshed. As long as you can get a kill with Adrenaline Junkie, it will refresh that 4.5 second timer, So, for example, I throw a grenade, get a kill, I'm at 5 stacks. As long as I can maintain a kill once every 4.5 seconds, I will have an infinite amount of 33% more damage. Very good perk. Swashbuckler is the exact same, except it's with a melee kill instead of a grenade kill. Swashbuckler arguably easier to proc because you don't have to have a charged melee kill. Of course, with a grenade, it has to be charged, which probably doesn't make sense if you've never played Destiny, but again, it'll make more sense come around. But basically, you have a grenade and a melee charge. You can only throw one grenade, and then you have to let it recharge. But melees, you can use your melee ability, and then you have a standard punch melee. But yeah, Surrounded deals a base 40% damage as long as 3 or more enemies are within 8 meters of you. You know, this one, it's situational, but it's still good. 40% damage is a lot. Okay, that's a lot. But yeah, finally you get to one of my favorite perks in the game, Rampage. Rampage basically activates and refreshes on kills. So similar to Adrenaline Junkie and Swashbuckler, you get a stack every time you get a kill. First stack deals 10%, second stack deals 21%, and the third stack deals 30% more damage. And as long as you can maintain kills within the 4.5 seconds, ignore this thing right here, this is kind of old, but as long as you can hit your targets within that 4.5 seconds, this is a wonderful, wonderful perk. Frenzy deals 15% more damage and increases handling and reload by 50 points, which basically makes it super fast once you're in combat for an X amount of time. So combat is considered to be taking damage or dealing damage. But as long as you're taking damage or dealing damage, you know, within, I want to say it's like 6 seconds of one another, it'll be active, and you'll just get a plus 15% damage boost and then plus 50% handling and reload. Explosive payload or explosive head. This is explosive head is for bows. Explosive payload is for all ballistic based weapons. It deals 15% more damage. It just makes it deal 15% more damage. Basically, when you shoot an enemy, the bullet will explode. Again, 50% more damage, very good. Time payload, 16% more damage. However, there's just a teeny tiny delay between the when it hits and explosions. Harmony, I'm going to skip over Harmony. I don't think Harmony is that great. Disruption Break, not that great. Vorpal, this is a good one. Basically, primary weapons will deal 20% more damage to mini bosses, champions, bosses, and vehicles, as well as guardians in their supers. It will deal 15% more damage for special weapons and 10% more damage for heavy weapons. This is something that if you have it on a weapon, it's always going to be active. You don't have to do anything to activate. You don't have to get any kills. You're just always going to get, on your primary weapon, you're always going to get 20% more damage against mini bosses, champions, bosses, vehicles, and PvE, and guardians in their super. No. Okay, Firing Line. This is a very, very good one right here. Firing Line increases your weapon damage by 20% when there's 2 allies nearby. So if you're doing content with, 2 of your friends, and all of you are standing close together, you're just going to be doing a flat 20% more damage with this weapon. It can be very, very good. Yeah, that's not that good. We'll skip that one. Armor Piercing Round. Let's skip over that. Let me see here. Let me go. Hold on. I have a perk tier list that I put in order, and it's not going to make sense to a lot of people here. But basically what I did is I took and I calculated S tier PvE perks, S tier PvP perks. If you want to take a look at this, again, this is every perk that exists currently in the game. S tier PvE, obviously these are the best of the best PvE perks. One of the ones that's not in there is Rapid Hit, which is this perk right here. Rapid Hits will increase your reload speed and your stability up to 5 stacks as long as you can maintain precision hits. Very, very good. Same thing here, Firefly. Firefly is if you get a precision kill, it will cause a solar explosion where the enemy died, and you'll get a slightly faster reload speed. Very good. But yeah, this is, if you want, you can screenshot this or something like that. So you just have a good idea. And again, this is subjective. Some people might consider, Full Court to be an A tier perk or something like that. But this is just my opinion. If you're looking for a weapon that, is really good, look for, some of these perks on it. Rampage, Rapid Hit, Rampage, Outlaw, Rampage Subsistence is a great combo. Basically, Subsistence, the way it works is every time you get a kill, it reloads either 10 or 15% of your magazine. Auto rifles, it's fantastic because it reloads 15% of auto rifles magazine. And of course, with Rampage, as long as you're dealing damage, it, or as long as you're getting kills, it'll continue to stack. And yeah, but this is my personal opinion on perks here, starting with S tier, PvE, A tier, B tier. D tier is just kind of, these perks are not that great. They kind of suck. And then of course, as you move up in PvP stuff, like these are great PvP perks. But yeah, you can feel free to screenshot it. Maybe one day I'll go over this in detail and explain why, but this video is already an hour and 15 minutes long anyways. But I just want to look through here. Like I said, the most important thing to remember is look for reload, increasing perks, and then damage dealing perks on your weapons. Like this perk right here, Feeding Frenzy. I hate that it doesn't show the name, but Feeding Frenzy, multi-kill clip. Great combo. Rampage Subsistence, Rampage Feeding Frenzy. One of my favorite reload perks is Outlaw, which is this perk right here. Outlaw, as long as you can get a precision kill, it increases your reload speed like immensely. But yeah, that's my perk tier list. Again, this is my opinion. If you have stayed through the video and you are a veteran player and you don't agree with this, let me know in the comments why. Of course, because I want to know. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for our coverage of just a basic, I say basic, but a weapon guide for our new light players. The tools that you use define your Guardian, so you want to have the best perks and stuff that you can have available. So just be on the lookout for perks that synergize well with each other. If you see a perk that's like, hey, that sounds pretty good, look at the perks it's paired with. You can see something like this perk right here, Reconstruction, Reservoir Burst. Reconstruction reloads the magazine up to twice its magazine, reloads 10% of the magazine every 3 seconds or 4 seconds, something like that. But if you have this and this, Reservoir Burst basically makes it where the top of the magazine deals increased damage and causes an explosion. That's Fusion Rifle perk. Pairing these together, you can bring your Fusion Rifle up to 10 bullets, and those first 5 bullets are all going to deal increased damage and cause explosions. It's looking and playing with perks here. You could look up guides to certain weapons and stuff like that. And of course, keep in mind that the roles that we have currently could change. I know I showed off a bunch of oops, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong tab here. I showed off a bunch of weapons in here that sound good. A lot of the weapons I showed weren't in game. I tried to call out if they weren't in game or if they were in game, but perks can change every season. So it's your responsibility to get in there and just play with new combinations of stuff you want. If you see a wacky combo and you want to try it, you try it. Try it and tell me how it goes, because I like trying wacky combos too. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me. Like I said, I'm the Worm Keeper. I look forward to seeing and meeting lots of new players in Nightfall. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye for now.